Hello and welcome to what promises to be a very special edition of View from the Bridge. We're going slightly different today. We're looking a bit on some rivalries between Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire. And I'm delighted today to be joined by former Derbyshire seamer Kevin Dean and David Griffin, who's the, I believe, Heritage Officer at Derbyshire. So nice to get a bit of balance to this podcast for a change, as we're normally all Notts fans. Gents, how are you doing this evening?
Yeah, I'm
Very
good,
well,
thank you.
Thank you very much. Good, thank you.
Fantastic. So it's 25 years since a famous, I say a famous match, maybe an infamous match between Notts and Derbyshire, which saw batting records broken and probably for all spectators a chance to catch up on some sleep. But also it's 24 years since probably a more famous match between the two sides, which Kevin actually played in. And then it might be bring up painful memories now, but we're very grateful for him to be joining us and reminiscing about a couple of those matches, but also the Nottinghamshire Derbyshire rivalry in general, because I think for certain supporters like myself, we probably don't really remember the two sides having that rivalry which existed in the early 2000s. So, Kevin, do you want to tell our audience a bit about what it was like playing Notts in those days and what it was like on the pitch? Because, Notts had some interesting characters, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, certainly. Firstly, thank you for inviting me onto the pod, and as you say, try and provide a little bit of balance from over the posh end of the Brian Clough way. Yeah, certainly. The rivalry, we always used to play each other in a pre-season friendly. You then play each other in the early rounds of the early league, the Benson Edges, as it was back in the day. So you'd always played each other 3 or 4 or 5 times early on in the season. Then also you'd get to play each other in the county championship as well. So it was a well-established rivalry between us, especially as I say, you get to know the players, but so you get to know that on the pitch. I mean, certainly the Notts lads would certainly see Corky as somebody who if you didn't know him, you wouldn't get on with him, sort of thing like that. Whereas I obviously got to spend a lot of time with him and know him very well. Whereas conversely, you had people like Paul Johnson, who on the pitch was a very spiky and very aggressive player. I got to know him off the pitch as well, and he's a fantastic guy. So you sort of live and learn, and the more you play in these games, the more you learn about the rivalries and the respect that you gain by them. Back in the day, you used to share a beer after the game. That was the done thing back in the day.
I mean, I was speaking to one former player, and they said about the fact that it was always fiery because you had Paul Franks on one side and Dominic Cork on the other, and now they would take a backward step, if it's fair to say. And to be honest, Dominic Cork, whether it was with Derbyshire or Hampshire or whoever, tended to perform, bring out his best against us. It always seemed to feel like.
Yeah. Well, he was a quality cricketer, wasn't he? I think he did it against most teams. Yeah, I think he's probably one of those. If you kept him quiet, if you just either ignored him or kept him quiet, you could probably sort of get away with it. But if you sort of riled him or got him angered or whatever like that, got the juices flowing, then I think he was certainly a better cricketer.
No, absolutely. And David, obviously, tell us a bit about what you do and your love of the county as well.
Well, my very first game was Nottinghamshire against Derbyshire at Ilkeston. I saw Gary Sobers score a century the first day I watched any county cricket, 3rd of August 1974. So it was as if the cricketing gods were with me on that day, urging me to get involved in that game. But I mean, the stories are legion from, of course, the game in Derbyshire historically used to be played at Ilkeston, which is right on the Derbyshire-Nottinghamshire border. And I heard tales from my dad and from my granddad about how there were 2 different beer tents on the ground at Ilkeston, one for the Derbyshire miners and one for the Nottinghamshire miners, because they would come down, they would drink, huge big hands, fistfuls of beer, but they had to be kept apart because I think it was friendly rivalry, but, the more they drank, there was more chance of having a bit of a set to. I think the rivalry was quite big in the 80s because there was some animosity between the counties over, a lot of people have forgotten this, but the TCCB, as it was then, introduced a regulation in the early 80s that said, at the time, counties had 2 overseas players. So Nottinghamshire had got Clive Rice and Richard Hadley throughout the 80s. But if you'd signed them both before a certain date, which was early 1981 or 82, you could keep them for as long as you want, while ever you'd got those 2. But if you'd signed any of them after that date, you could only play one. So Derbyshire had this ridiculous situation throughout the 1980s of having John Wright and Michael Holding as the 2 overseas players, but we could only play one. whereas Nottinghamshire could play too, as could Hampshire and Somerset and other counties. It was absolutely ridiculous. You think the governing body makes some daft decisions. I mean, that was outrageous, really. But when we got our quicks around, there was a lot of animosity, late 80s, early 90s. Ian Bishop, Devon Malcolm. I remember a bouncer war that Notts started and Derbyshire finished at Derby. I think it was 1990 when Ian Bishop was fearsomely quick. But yeah, we had some great times against Nottinghamshire, but also lots of great friends. Kevin's talked about people he's got to know off the field, and likewise. I mean, I went to school in Nottingham. I was a policeman in Nottingham. I've got a lot of friends at Trent Bridge. But yeah, you absolutely want to beat them. There's no two ways about that. It always hurts a bit more when you lose.
No, absolutely. I mean, I was there last year for the one-day cup match, and with Ross Riley, it was the biggest six I've ever seen, and I actually quite like the fact that there's a rivalry, but I could go there. Other Notts fans could go there, and there was no animosity. There's no worry about things kicking off. It's a rivalry, but it's a nice atmosphere as well. I think between the two sides, it seems to be what a rivalry should be. Competitive, but
absolutely
as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
No, brilliant. Brilliant. Well, I'm glad to get rid of the background. So we've obviously teased a bit about what we want to talk about today. So why don't we, for your sake, maybe get through the more painful experience first, the 2002 match. So just for a bit of context, so Derbyshire batted first. So this is at Derby, and so they made 353 batting first. Divenuto 91 was the top scorer. Notts had Nicky Boyer in the side, 4 wickets for him. And then Notts followed up with 240. Kevin Peterson, 103 not out. This was 2 games after he'd been dropped by the new head coach Mick Newell. He'd come back, and there you go. That was his response, 103 not out. Dominic Cork, 4 wickets. Kevin Dean, 1 for 60 off 11 overs.
Bit expensive, that one, that in India.
Yeah, second time around, Derbyshire, 209. 5 wickets for Boyer, 3 for Paul Franks, and 2 for AJ Harris, again a former Derbyshire man. So that left Notts 323 to win. And then what was famous about it is the fact that it went down to the very last wicket. So Notts obviously 113 down on first innings, which obviously chasing over 300 to win. Last pair come to the crease. It's Jason Gallion, Notts opener, who was not out, and Greg Smith, someone who I don't believe ever made a career 50, or if he did, it wouldn't be very often. And the pair put on an unbeaten last wicket partnership of 46 to take Notts over the line. David, Kevin, probably bringing up painful memories, but what are your recollections of that match and that last wicket partnership? Gallion ending 111 not out after.
Let the cricketer go first. He had to go through. He had to watch it. I was just biting my nails at the side of the
definitely, yeah. No, it was. I say I've got the scorecard up in front of me. Yeah, I say it was 259 for 8. Then Richard Logan put on a small partnership with Jason, and then as you say, Greg Smith put on best part of 50 to win the game. It was also 104 overs bowled. So I'm thinking what happened was we probably took the new ball at some stage, and maybe that didn't swing or say getting towards the end of the day on day 4, we probably weren't quite as fresh as what would have been at the start of the day when we got sort of Johnson, Welton, Afzal and Peterson out. Then Nicky Boyer and Chris Reed had a bit of a partnership with Gallion as well. So from memory, I think we probably were a bit knackered. I always remember there was, I think Andy Afford at the time said, but I think he might have been 12th man or around the place at the time. He said, because we played Northants 2 days afterwards, and that Northants away was always a tough place to go and everything like that. He said, when you came off here, you looked absolutely knackered, and we won at Northants. So that was probably just the warm up for the Northants game, but certainly not to get the last wicket with you needing 50 to win. Is obviously a position you'd like to be in, but they obviously managed to get over the line.
Yeah, I mean, David, you did a blog piece about this previously, and you said new ball was taken, Cork, Dean and Welch used it, Derbyshire tried everything, but you said there's Gallion Smith scrambled everyone, fingernails were bitten behind the boundary fence. And when the winning runs were struck, there was a collective groan of disappointment. Obviously, you remember that game quite vividly. Tell us what your memories are.
Well, we just go back a couple of years. We'd managed to secure a place in Division 1 in 2000 and had a pretty poor season, really. Went down, couldn't regroup in 2001. And in 2002, we won 5 of our first 6 games, which is almost unheard of even now in the Championship, because the weather normally prevents that sort of thing from happening.
We nearly beat Essex to make it 6 out of 6.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And Corky had got 35 wickets in 5 games. Yeah, and we all knew the likelihood was England would snaffle him away. But Kevin got 80 wickets just for Derbyshire that summer. Graham Welsh got 57. And we went into that match really confidently. And we'd beaten Notts a couple of games earlier at the Bridge in the Championship. I think by 4 wickets, I think. So
Chris Bazan got the...
That's right, yeah. And there was this sense of, surely this attack will do it. And what astonished me was the crowd that gathered. Loads of people came into the ground in that late afternoon. It was quite gloomy. And we just stayed in the same position, because back then we were playing east to west. The ground was the other way around. And we thought, well, with Dean and Cork and Welsh, and we've got Muhammad Ali, a left arm quick. And you think, well, if needs be, he might get somebody. I mean, that last wicket, 46, believe it or not, you can tell I'm a statistician, but that is the highest partnership Notts have ever had for the 10th wicket to win a game. And it's the highest we've conceded, 10th wicket to lose a game. It's very, very rare that a partnership of that. I mean, I think our record last wicket partnership to win a game is 28. Involving Devon Malcolm, believe it or not. So, throughout it, you kept thinking one of these 3 quicks, one of Kevin, Graham or Corky, will surely get this tail ender out. Don't worry about Galley, and he's been in forever, 7 hours or whatever.
7 hours, wasn't it?
Yeah. And of course, we'd seen Gallion at Old Trafford for Lancashire 6 years previously, scored a 300.
312.
And ended up on the losing side.
Yeah, still the longest ever innings in first class.
Yeah, that's right.
History by minutes.
But it was just one of those games where you thought it will come. Even when it got down to fewer and fewer runs, you thought this attack is smart enough and quick enough to do it.
I can't remember us having a chance, Griff. Did we?
No, not really. No.
It was chancellered, wasn't it? Yeah.
They'd got plenty of overs in hand, because I think when it finished, we were in the last hour, but only not far into it. I don't think.
Yeah, time was never an issue, was it? No. Yeah.
It's interesting. So you mentioned obviously you beat Notts early in the season. So that was Clive Rice's last match as Notts, I think, class first team manager, head coach. So Mick Newell, who was head of the seconds, took over after that. So I mentioned that was his 3rd game in charge. In the first one, he dropped Peterson because Peterson was on a lean run of form. He brought in Bilal Shafi out. He made a pair, brought Peterson back in, and that was Peterson's 2nd game back. So it was quite obviously that was, and then Notts went on and got promoted that year.
Yeah,
obviously, so that was quite a famous. So it was almost like the opposite. You started strong and faded a bit, whereas for Notts that was one of the catalysts for going on to get promotion that year.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And what was it like? Bowling to Jason, bowling to Kevin. 2 very different players, but obviously both made runs in that match.
Yeah, I think I've post-retirement, everything like that, I think I made it quite clear that he's comfortably the best player I've ever bowled at. Just could almost hit you at will, and you knew which, if he got in, it was almost relatively impossible. It was almost got to the stage where you'd try and give him one and get him off strike and bowl at the other end, because he was that good. We did that in when he obviously played for England, things like that, and he went to the famous 2005 Ashes Test. I think Brett Lee bowled one at 94 miles an hour, and he just baseball batted it straight back past him. And we all sort of thought, thank God he's been doing that for us for 3 or 4 years. We're glad he does it to the best in the world, sort of thing like that. So I'd say comfortably bowling at Kevin was a tricky gig.
So obviously, so the year before, I mentioned there was an infamous occasion. So this was also at Derby. So Notts 5-2-6, Derbyshire 5-7-2, Notts 5-5-7 for 5. The end of their match. So just for a bit of context, over 1,600 runs scored for 25 wickets. It was the highest ever runs scored in a match featuring either Notts or Derbyshire. John Morris, he played for both sides. He was playing for Notts that day. He made hundreds in both innings. Featured in 2 300-run partnerships. One of them was with Peterson, who made a double century and a duck. And at the time, that made him the youngest double centurion in Notts' history. So a few stats for that one. Do you remember much about that? I mean, it must have been the most painful experience as a fast bowler ever on that pitch.
Certainly, yeah. But I'd say we matched their first innings total, and on the final morning, we had them something like 110, 115 for 4. We thought, well, if we can just skittle them out here, we might have a chance here. And of course, later on in the day, that looked a very, very poor judgment. There wasn't enough time in the game for them to set as a total to chase. So the game just sort of drifted on, and I think Crick bowled about 8 overs or something like that. So ended up being not the greatest spectacle, but plenty of room for stats to get. The most memorable thing would be the stats out of that game.
Well, you got 3 for 100 in the second innings, so that's not on that wicket. That seems like a fair effort. Yeah, you had Notts 185 for 5, and then they ended up 557 for 5.
That was it. Yeah, something I'd say there was something we had half a sniff. If you get 185 for 5, you get a couple of wickets. It's 200 for 7, and you never know. You might be able to chase, but it never materialised.
No. Well. Thankfully, I hope you didn't have to play on too many pitches like that. What were the wickets like at Derbyshire? Because, did they change, or was it just they
certainly were bowler friendly at times. I'd certainly agree with that. But then conversely, I think we played a game against Northants, the first ever game under floodlights, where we stuck them in, and then we didn't get a wicket in the whole of the first day because the floodlights were on, and it just the atmosphere had changed and everything like that. So it can be very flat, as it is now at Derbyshire. It's very, very, very good wickets, very flat wickets. And I think I've mentioned to you, Griff, before, I think our games go on longer than anybody else's on the county circuit. So be it home again or away, whether that's the style of cricket we play or whatever. But it's certainly a batter's place to play at the moment, I would suggest.
And
we'll see if Mohammed Abbas can make any impact on that.
Oh, yes. To be honest.
Shoaib's going to get plenty of chances for 4 innings.
Just a few.
I think we're quite pleased as a county that he's not gone to a Division 1 side. I know Mick was mentioning the other day that, when Hampshire turned up last year at our place, saw a green wicket and a bat on our side, and they knew what was going to come because they obviously had him at their side. So I think we're quite pleased that he's not in a Division 1 rival next year. So I think you'll look forward to seeing him in action. He is incredible. So.
Yeah, I think a lot. It's interesting what Kevin says, but I think to a certain extent, our bowling attack it's varied. We've had players who bang it in, people like Pat Brown, Zach Chappell, and Blair Tickner banging it in. But if you look at the most successful bowler since Kevin's day for Derbyshire, was Tony Palladino, who kind of pitched it up and kissed the pitch. That's what Mohammed Abbas will do, and it's certainly what this young lad Rory Hayden does. He pitches it up, looks very promising, Staffordshire lad. And there was a time when banging it in at Derby was the way forward, but I think pitching it up, Lewis Rees 50 wickets last year, and he got a lot at home just by floating it. Well, not floating it, that's a bit disingenuous, but pushing it up there and letting the ball do some work off the pitch. So I think if you get the right bowlers, I think you can have an enforcer, but you can have too many if you're not careful. And I think Zach does the job really well, but I think you can have too many like that, and halfway down doesn't give the ball the opportunity to do perhaps what you want it to do.
And what about is it Harry Moore as well? I mean, I know Mickey Arthur raves about him. When I saw him play a couple of seasons ago now for Derbyshire, I thought I was incredibly impressed. I mean, what's happening with him? I know he's been injured. I mean, do you think you've got a potential star of the future there? I know you already might get picked by.
He was on the verge of the England under-19 World Cup squad, and then just didn't quite recover from his back injury in time. He's 6'7" already, I think, sort of thing like that. So keeping him fit will be the main thing, but certainly his height and his pace, and he can certainly bat as well. So he'd be more than a bowling all-rounder. Let's put it that way. Yeah. So,
the good thing about the batting, we played a game at Taunton 2 years ago, chasing over 300, our highest ever successful one-day run chase. Anuj Dar got 100, but he got out And I think we needed something like 35 or 40 to win off the last few overs. Harry went out to bat and he thought, well, we've made a decent fist of this. And it was almost Cork-like in the way he just went out completely, without a care in the world, puffed his chest out. And I can see him now coming down the pitch to show up and thinking, what are you doing? And then the next minute, the ball's just gone out the ground. He
played a little reverse scoop to somebody as well, didn't he?
He did, yeah. He's a confident lad, and provided this injury this year out hasn't had a negative impact, he's got everything. He can bowl sharp and he can bat. I've heard people say to me he could be a better batter than bowler. That
definitely.
But I've heard that said.
But don't worry, I'm sure we'll end up signing him in a year's time anyway for that. So.
I know his dad, so you won't.
Yeah, I played cricket with his granddad, which is frightening because that really does make me feel. I played cricket with his granddad at Shipley Hall in the 1970s. Wow.
Speaking of people who played for Notts and Derbyshire, I mean, obviously, we mentioned John Morris, AJ Harris, Ben Slater. I mean, any sort of memories of playing or watching those guys? I mean, they're all fine cricketers.
1996, I shared a house with AJ up in Oakwood in Derby. We had a good time together. He played for West Hallam White Rose, and I was Langley Mill at the time. So we had a good rivalry. We weren't by any means first team players by then, so we'd always go out on the Saturday and come back to the house and discuss how we got on with club cricket. Because you forget in the time there was very little mobile phones. There was no you just get back home and then you'd find out how you'd gone on that day, sort of thing. Yeah. So yeah, he was a good friend, AJ.
I think, there's been, I'd need to get my stats up, but I think Nottinghamshire, of the counties that have provided most players who've played for us and for another county, I think Notts and Yorkshire and Lancashire are the three with the most. Obviously Brian Bowles came to us as a captain. He was the first captain of the team I first watched. But there's been a lot of, if you like, cross-pollination over the years of players from Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire. Of course, Zach Chappell was there, and most recently. But yeah, the three you mentioned. John Morris was an exceptional player. I think on his day, as good as anybody in the country. Played quick bowling really well. Ben Slater has really matured. I think at the top of the order, he didn't quite get where he wanted at Derbyshire, but going to Trent Bridge, whether it's playing with better players, better coaches, or whatever, but he's definitely become a really good cricketer. And AJ. Sorry, I was just going to say about AJ Harris, that summer of 96 when he sort of burst on the scenery. I remember him getting 12 wickets against, I think, Middlesex.
India. Was it? Oh, Middlesex, sorry, yeah.
Middlesex in the championship. And he was a traditional Derbyshire bowler. He brisk, close to the stumps, pitched it up, nice action. Just a pity we couldn't keep him, really.
Yeah, AJ was a bit quicker than what you thought as well. Wasn't he? He was a very slight lad and it was a little bit quicker than what everybody thought as well. Yeah, I would say.
I agree with that, Ben. He's a fantastic opening batsman. A couple of the knocks he's played in recent years and I think again Mick was saying he seems the harder wickets bring the best out of him. So he carried his bat against Lancashire when James Anderson took 7-0 against us. That the match before his final test.
I do, yeah.
7 for, and Ben carried his bat for 60 odd. And then last year against Surrey, day one, pitch was doing a bit. Wickets are falling. He made a 50, and it's one of those innings where you look at it and go, "That was opening the batting there against Surrey, the oval on a green team. It was one of those sort of unheralded knocks." So no, absolutely a fun player and a terrific one-day player as well. I think at one stage had the second highest this day average ever was at one point, or third or something. So.
Well, he averaged 50 plus for us in this day. I often wonder if both for him and Hamid actually, that being able to concentrate on red ball cricket and the longer form of white ball cricket and not playing T20 may well prolong their careers and maybe improve them because they can kind of stick with that technique, don't they? They're not chopping and changing to the 20 over format. Kevin, as a player, you'll understand that better, but both of the knocks look solid, don't they?
Mitchell Stark has done that as well, hasn't he? He's sort of now sacking off the 2020, as has Ben Stokes as well, to play the red ball format. Certainly isn't dead or anything like that, but you've got players of that quality and caliber deciding, no, I want to play that, I want to play this, not 20. Whereas they could very easily get into any T20 franchise around the world. It's interesting that they both decided to concentrate on the red ball stuff. So I'll make it continue.
No, absolutely. Right. Do you have any more sort of not Derbyshire memories you sort of that come to mind?
Well, I'll give you my favourite. Well, actually, several favourites. Actually, I mean, last year just winning a T20 match at Trent Bridge and seeing Samit Patel's face when he walked off after he'd won by 46. The best bit was when the last over was bowled and he deliberately walked over and stood in front of the CEO's office at the pavilion. I can't not mention the NatWest quarter-final in 1987. Back in the day when you watched, it was broadcast live on the BBC and you'd have literally millions of people watching. Derbyshire played Notts. We got beaten, but it was a glorious hot day. There was a full house at Derby. And there's a footballer called Peter Ward that Kevin will remember, who played for Brighton and Hove Albion and Nottingham Forest. And his sister had determined that one way or another, she was going to get herself on page 3 of the Sun newspaper, which back then was a showcase for ladies not wearing very much. And she actually climbed over the fence over at the far end of the ground opposite the grandstand and ran across the pitch wearing just a pair of black pants. And I mean, she got her photographs. She got in the Sun 2 days later. It was all a setup. But the best bit was when Les Hart, who Kevin will remember, I'm sure, was on the PA. Sure. And he came onto the PA and he didn't ask her to leave the field or anything like that. He just announced across the PA, and you could hear it on the TV because I recorded it at home. Come on, love, we've seen it all before, which was quite staggering, really, to hear. But that one, I remember that vividly. And I've got a photograph of her. And in the background, Richard Hadley stood with his hand on his hips, just looking at her like that. And I actually got Richard to sign it some years later. So, yeah, that's a favourite.
I'll continue in a similar vein, sort of thing like that. We had a tradition that if we won it, unfortunately, it didn't happen very often, but if we won a game at Trent Bridge, we'd go to the local pub down the road, which might be an American chain of a certain amount of American dancers, yes, shall we say?
Yeah. Right, I know exactly. I think everyone from Nottinghamshire knows exactly what you mean. So,
on the way to the train station, obviously. Yeah,
rhymes with shooters. Is that correct?
That's the one.
Like that,
yeah. Fantastic. Great. It's still there now, as far as I'm aware. So,
well, if teams keep winning at Nottingham, then that's bound to, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Well, hopefully not too much next season. I don't think anyone won there, at least in the 4-day stuff last year. So
no, well, obviously not. No.
No, so that was brilliant. And you know, what are your thoughts for Derbyshire next season? Optimistic? You know, you obviously got Derbyshire joining. And what are your sort of thoughts on the county game in general? You know, both of you. Are you enjoying what you're seeing? Are you frustrated? I mean, nice to get a different perspective from sort of grumblings we have as Notts fans, because we obviously have 100 impacts. There's maybe a bit more in a sense, so it's nice to get maybe a different perspective and everything.
Do you mind if I go first, Kev?
Well, Griff, go for it. You.
Well, I would just say you've got Adam Hollyoak coaching at Kent. You've got Darren Lehman at Northamptonshire. You've got Mickey Arthur at Derbyshire. You've got overseas players still. It's impossible to get the greats like we did in Kevin's day purely because of unavailability. But you still get some really outstanding players come to play the game in this country. You still get good crowds. You still get a lot of interest. The streaming numbers are out of this world, really. And I think sometimes it's too easy to be dismissive of the game. The fact is that, the standard is not poor. You've got 300 or 400 guys. They don't play county cricket if they're not any good, because there are hundreds of thousands of people who play cricket. And I think the standard is good. I think the grounds and the pitches, generally speaking, are pretty good. The experience that you offer up to people who want to go and watch it is pretty good. And I think the great thing is that, you look at Derbyshire last year, brought a guy called Caleb Jewell that nobody had heard of, came to England last year and scored more runs than any other player in the country across all formats, 1,721 runs. So he's coming back. And I think that's great for county cricket, because I think Derbyshire, again, Kevin will remember the players that came back year after year after year. And there's been a lot of criticism of players who dip in and out of the game, come for a few games. And I think it's great if a player like that wants to come along. I think county cricket is still a great game. you know, I don't want to miss it. I'm there first thing in the morning. I'm there last thing at night, and you know, wherever Derbyshire are, I'm there. I think it's a wonderful game.
It is, yeah. You're talking about overseas pros that come back. I played a lot of my cricket with Michael Di Veneto, who came back every year and square cutted it for 1,500 runs every season, sort of thing like that. So Div was a fantastic teammate, and
Absolutely.
played it in the right way. Played it hard again. Played it hard. Probably if you didn't know him, he probably came across as sort of quite quiet on the pitch, but sort of had a presence. But off the pitch, absolutely fantastic guys. He's probably gone on to show he's now batting coach for Australia, isn't he? Something like that. So in terms of Derbyshire, I think we've got Mickey for another 3 years or 2 years with an extra one, and he's certainly the foundations are there. We've got 2 excellent signings in Mohamed Abbas and Shoaib Bashir. Things are looking up. I think it's always positive.
And Montgomery, of course,
Montgomery from Knox. Yeah.
I think he's a very underrated, limited overs bowler. I think he's
it's not know your place, but I think we've signed the right players who are going to be available to play a lot of cricket for us. Like you say, Griff, you're talking about players who dip in and out and things like that. I think we've signed a lot of players who will be able to play all formats all the time, and it's a good strategy. So let's see where it takes us.
And I think Mickey Arthur, without denigrating coaches of the past, would we have been able to sign an Aaron Donald, Mohamed Abbas, Bashir without Mickey's, influence? Sham Masood, Mickey. If Mickey doesn't know you, then nobody knows you, because Mickey's been international coach at 4 different countries. He knows players. He does 2 franchises every winter, so he knows people. And I'm very confident. We only missed out on 5 points on promotion last year. White ball was a bit disappointing, but there's some good signings. Just out Wayne Madsen's shoulder.
Just over captain's. Okay,
We just don't want Wayne's shoulder to be a long-term injury. That's the main thing.
No, I think Mickey Arthur reminds a bit.
A
bit like Peter Moore. They both just have this infectious enthusiasm, don't they? They love the game, and you say a man who's coached 4 countries. I think at least 4. He's now at Derbyshire and loving life. I think that's great. It's great for the game. So I mean this in a nice way. Good luck for Derbyshire, and next season. We're lovely to have that rivalry resumed in Division 1. A couple of years' time, I suppose. Maybe with Leicestershire as well, potentially. So always good to have some local rivals to play. Look, I've really enjoyed this. This has been fun to sort of go through some of those memories. Just out of interest, Kevin, what do you do now? Tell our sort of listeners and viewers what you're up to today as an ex-pro in the real world.
Oh, definitely. I still kept playing cricket up until 2018 for Oldbrook and Borrowash. I still play the odd MCC game or something like that. I have just turned 50, only 50 as well, and I've been slightly roped into the Derbyshire over 50s setup this year. So we'll see how that goes during this summer. My wife's got a furniture business, so I'm, as you can see, probably in the background, there's a bit of furniture and stuff like that. So she loves that, and I'm just the delivery boy for her.
Do you want to give her business a quick plug? Name?
No. It's it's got the mid-century furniture. You'll find it. Sharon Dean. You'll find it on various social media.
There you go. Anyone who needs a new piece of furniture, I'm sure my wife's, if she listens to this will be frantically googling now, thinking, "Oh, we need something." So there we go. Fantastic. And Dave, just a bit, obviously, heritage-wise at Derbyshire, what are you sort of focusing on at the minute?
Well, I've been the club's photographer for the last 20 years. I'm the official heritage officer, statistician, author now. Another book. I'm writing another book. I can't tell you what it's about yet because it's not been announced. But I'm writing a second book about cricket. Retired policeman. So I've got 2 grandchildren. So that's good fun, particularly in the close season. But by and large, just anything to do with Derbyshire, I'm up for it. Really, talking about it, watching it, photographing, writing about it. It's the best way to waste a summer. Put it that way.
Maybe when we come up against you in the blast, maybe we'll have to get you back on, and we'll stick up the rivalry a little bit and get your opposition preview.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time this evening, and for everyone who's tuned in. We'll hopefully get some more episodes for you as we get nearer the new season. So until then, please like, subscribe. We're on Apple, Spotify, and on YouTube as well. We have a Substack piece out this week as well on the Notts whiteball team of the 21st century, which must admit, putting together one side was pretty tricky when you look at the players we've had in that period. But yeah, check that one out as well. So thank you again to Kevin and David, and we'll be back with you very soon.